Plants, the green frontier. These are the discussions of the podcast Horticult. Its continuing mission to talk about strange new cultivars, to seek out new flowers and plant them, to boldly garden like no one has before. Hey, this is Beef Flame for the Horticult. What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? On this episode of the podcast, sit down with Brad. We talk over growing poinsettias. He's been doing it for 5 years in the greenhouse industry, so he knows all the ins and outs. We go over this culture guide I found online, problems you can have, all the things you have to look out for, about your timetable for every stage of the poinsettia growing. Then we talk a little bit about my poinsettia that I've had for 2 years and getting that to rebloom and grow the bracts again. And then we talk about the diseases and pests that can happen with it and how to mitigate those things. So let's get it on. I'm B-Flame.
And this is B-Rad.
And we are the Horticult. Thanks for coming along for the ride.
All right.
On this episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about propagating poinsettias.
And just simple maintenance care for once you have that poinsettia.
We are actually looking at the culture guide, poinsettia culture guide. You can look up this on any plant in cultivation.
Culture guide is great for growers, but it's also good for any level of people interested in gardening plants. Gives you a guideline as far as what they need from the beginning to the end.
It says, open your box upon arrival and check the temperature. Okay, unpackage the cuttings.
Quick though, cuttings are just simply a chunk of the plant from a mother plant, from a stock plant.
When you order a poinsettias for the greenhouse, you actually order cuttings. You don't order the mama plant that you cut up.
That's right. There are many patents.
How long does it stay good?
Packaged properly, they're nearly overnighted. I mean, you can't keep them in the box and the bag for very long. And the reason why, the trick behind that is the longer they stay in the box, the more ethylene buildup. And ethylene is a gas. It's natural. It's produced from the plant. Desiccates or ripens basically any living plant or fruit. That's what ripens your fruit, is ethylene.
So it's starting to decay.
So you receive those quickly, you unpack them quickly, but now that they've been unpacked and exposed to oxygen and air, they need to be humidified or misted.
So it says it's preferred to stick unrooted cuttings right away. So they're saying get them going.
Very much, yeah.
But if you must store cuttings, keep them cool 50 degrees
Fahrenheit
for no more than 24 hours.
Yeah, so refrigerator.
First 2 days, limit stress that can result from transition from propagating of the cooled cutting.
So yeah, minimizing or limiting stress is simply just misting them. Now, in a greenhouse, we have booms that run over the crop every so often, approximately every 5 to 10 minutes. Misting it, you're not dumping a bunch of water on the leaves, but you're just simply misting and building the humidity. By doing so, the plant stays turgid. The leaf stays turgid, and so which means it just stays hydrated. And that's what we do. And you just keep that same watering or misting pattern on there for many days, reducing the time or the duration of that misting. And so we typically back it off from that 5 or 10 minutes. Every day we reduce it by a couple of minutes until you finally gain callousing on the bottom part of that cut. So kind of like humans, we get a cut on our skin. What does our body do? It creates scab. Pre-scab would be a callus, and that's exactly what the plants are doing. They callus up, and then after the callus, plants have this unique ability to then reformulate their cells, change their stem cells into root cells. So right where that callus is, where it kind of gets white, that's where the roots will then emerge. And the cells have changed then from stem cells to root cells. It takes about 8 days after sticking a cutting. So this is, I mean, you have to be so like invested to back that watering off a little bit every single day, every single day. If it's a cloudy day, back it off a little more. If it's a sunny, hot day, keep it on there a little bit longer. The idea is to get it to callus after about 8 days. Roots will start to emerge very, very slowly, and voila.
So this is after you've put it into... So you've taken your cutting, you've dipped it in the hormone, you've put it into...
Like a soilless mix or the little foam oasis. Those are that's a great way to do it. And so it has not only something to hold it upright, but it also has the medium is able to hold on to water.
It only takes 23 to 28 days
to root out.
To root out and to be able to plant it into a pot.
Yeah. Okay, so in relative terms, that's a long time.
For
a plant to create roots from a cutting.
Okay.
Yeah. That may not seem like very long, but like if you take a petunia or a calibrachoa, do the same thing, dip it in hormone, put it in soil, keep the mist on there, you can root that dog in like 5-6 days. Bam!
And then you can just take it and plant it in the pot.
Yeah, well, so usually what you do is after that 5 or 6 days that you allow it to callus and then start to root out, we give it an additional week to 2 weeks to really establish its roots in that little cell before we pluck it out of there and plop it into a larger size.
So what would you move it from? What size?
Well, and that's a great question. So you can grow liners and then transplant them from the liners to the final pot. So the final pot in this case, in a commercial greenhouse, is, let's just say, a 6-inch pot, or they call it a 1 gallon pot, and you can put one plant in there. But if you have let's just say you have a 10-inch, so I just mentioned 6-inch, if you have a 10-inch size pot, the best thing to do there is not put one cutting in, but 4. Boom, 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 boom. You've got 4 plants in one pot, and it's going to create this giant, beautiful, large poinsettia. Just real quick, poinsettia plants are, in their native environment, trees. So you can imagine in the commercial greenhouse, we're basically growing trees in a container, and we're trying to keep them at a relatively short size, small shrub size, really. And so by doing that, it's very important early on to pinch it. So once you have about, and it depends on how big of a poinsettia you want, as far as how far down you pinch your poinsettia, but you want to end up with between 4 and 7 leaflets. So you're pinching down to 4 to 7 leaflets. What that equates to, what that means, some might say, why are you counting leaflets? What's the big deal? How does that even matter? That's how many bracts you're going to end up with, which is the flower.
Yeah.
The very, very end. You pinch it down to 7 leaflets, you're going to have 7 bracts. Boom. That's how you can count it out. If you want a really, really big poinsettia in a 10-inch pot, then pinch it down to 7, put 4 of those plants in a 10-inch pot. Now you've got 28 bracts at the very end.
I have an old poinsettia. Could I pinch that and do all that stuff to it and cut it down like a little tree to like make it sprout a bunch?
You could.
It's kind of gangly.
Yeah.
And it's 3 different poinsettias.
Yep.
And this is actually one that you gave me 2 years ago. But if you look, these are all going to be the bracts, yeah?
That's right, yeah.
So I got a lot.
Yeah, and this, and that's the interesting thing is I don't know a lot about tending for the longevity, right? And so you're absolutely right. You'll have a bract here, there, and it's asymmetrical. I mean, it has a kind of a funky shape, you know.
Yeah,
but
it's kind of getting long and gangly.
And long and gangly, and they amazingly become a little bit woody at the base.
Yeah, totally.
And that's absolutely normal. It's a tree, right? I mean, it's a tree in a tropical area, so that's kind of totally to be expected. Now, if you wanted to propagate this for your own personal home and well-being, give it a shot. You would propagate from this really green the upper.
So you're saying I could cut that and stick it and make a separate... I could clone it from this right here.
Yeah, you could.
Is that what you're saying to do?
You could clone that and just keep that within your homestead, your house.
So I could basically start over.
Yeah, and here's the thing is that it's not just poinsettias, but really there's a lot of plants out there, aka it's called propagation. A lot of plants out there that you can propagate via cutting, and that's basically it. Yeah, you're taking the nice green wood or stem, which is able to change itself from stem tissue to root tissue. Now, if you took this old woody stuff, it's not likely. Yeah, it's not likely to work.
It's actually starting to leaf out on the nodes of the woody stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So those are going to be new.
Yeah, called auxiliary buds. And a lot of trees and plants have auxiliary buds right next to that.
Well, I'm just surprised I kept it alive this long.
Yeah, I'm
there was a couple
impressed. I
times
am highly impressed.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It looked really bad for a while. I've kind of come up with a system now, and we're actually doing bad because I'm keeping it in the light at night. But I kept it in the closet a little longer today. So I put it in the closet at night so it doesn't get any of this light and stuff. Fake light.
Oh yeah, that will delay and or abort any kind of like color up.
Yeah. So I need to get this thing in the dark.
Okay.
But yeah, this is my poinsettia. I'm pretty happy with it. What brought it back to life was in the summer. I stuck it out on my porch, and it loved it. Absolutely loved it. It totally just exploded. Yeah. Because I've had it as an indoor plant. Wasn't getting enough light. If I could keep it going, I think I'm just going to keep it, and it's going to be awesome.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Good on you, mate. Yeah, so just real quick, I mean, the amazing longevity of a poinsettia, clearly you can see taken care of, can last many, many years. It's a little bit tricky to get them to change to that red coloring that a lot of people adore at the holidays.
Last year, it did it late. It was in the summer. I had a red poinsettia in the summer. I don't know how I tried, but it just delayed it so much.
Yeah.
I think what happened is I gave it the photo period, but I didn't give it any nutrients. I didn't give it to grow the new bracts. So then it grew the bracts, and then I had little poinsettia bracts on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Man, that's crazy.
Super delayed, but at least this year it's pushing them out right now.
Yeah.
So we're in November. It might be. I actually might have a red leaf poinsettia by Christmas.
Yeah, you'd really want it. So you want to make sure that the light is way less than 12 hours a day.
Yeah. I'm trying to do like 8 hours. Like this is not. I usually have it in my closet right now.
Yeah.
So it usually does not get any light after sunset.
Yeah,
so.
Keep the poinsettia in the closet. That's the answer to the redness.
So I'm bringing it in and out. Mm-hmm. You leave it in the closet the whole time?
No, you want to bring it out. Yeah.
Because I heard when I've heard people say, put it in the closet. Well, I put it in the closet and I almost died because I didn't take it out of the closet. Yeah. So you have to rotate it, put it in the closet during the nighttime.
Yeah.
If the sun's up, bring it out. The sun goes down, put it in the closet.
Yeah, they are amazingly. They're high feeders, meaning they like fertilizer a lot in the beginning to build the bracts. And they're high photosynthesizers. So in the beginning, because obviously once it's developed, once it's matured, a lot of the time when those plants are sold, they leave the greenhouse, they go to the store, then they're bought from the store, they're taken into a home. Usually the home is low light in the winter. And they typically don't get fertilized from the point. Once they leave the greenhouse, they don't get fertilized. And so really, once they've grown to that point of maturity and they've transitioned from vegetative to reproductive, aka switching colors, right, on the bracts, then they don't need nearly as much fertilizer. It's not a big deal. They're not as big of photosynthesizers anymore. Usually the sun, they're building stem cells and girth and strength And then at one point they're just chill. They're relaxing. Plant, the poinsettia has gone into I'm just going to relax now. I don't need to build anything of any sort. One thing that is important as you're growing poinsettias, they're very susceptible to root rot, depending on the variety. Whitefly, that's the bug of choice that loves poinsettias. So you'll never see, and never say never, but you'll never see aphids, rarely see thrips, and rarely ever see mites on poinsettias. But whitefly, for some reason, love the smell of poinsettias. They will find it and track it down and try to devour that.
So do you think that it's because of the latex that the other little critters don't like it? Or is it?
I suspect because it's in the euphorbia family. Yeah, because it has that latex inside. That's kind of my guess. Not 100% sure, but yeah, whitefly, for some reason they really go after it. And the disease, that root disease I was telling you about, Pythium and Rhizoctonia. So they're both soil-borne disease. They transfer through water.
It's a fungal disease?
Yeah, it's fungal. Best way to manage that is simply just water it really well, let it dry down, have a dry down cycle. Water it well, let it dry down. Poinsettias are amazingly tolerant of being over wet and under wet. But if you keep it too wet, too cold, yeah, it has the propensity to get that disease. So
maybe once a week water it, pretty good.
Depends on light levels, depends on heat. Is it near a vent? You know what I'm saying?
Like, so if it's near a vent, it needs it more.
Yeah, it'll simply just dry out more, right?
Right.
But one of the best determining factors for us, if we're like, oh, the top of the soil looks dry, well, go pick up the pot. That'll tell you more than anything. Or even unpot it, right? Take the whole plant, flip it upside down, holding it, check the roots. If the roots are glistening wet at the very bottom, it doesn't need water, even if it's dry at the top. It's a funny thing. I mean, you want to visually inspect it, but you also want to like lift it up and feel, hey, is there any water down at the very bottom? But that kind of gives you a little bit to bite off and chew for a second. As far as that culture guide, blam, whitefly.
That's it right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly it.
So there's your.
Yeah, when you have white roots, it's they're strong and healthy if they're.
So really, that could be controlled by cultural practice.
And that's what I would recommend as much as possible. One, because it doesn't cost anything. You just pay attention to your watering, and you're eliminating a huge problem. You can always bring in fungicides. And there's many, many different types that you can use for something like that. But why put yourself in harm's way and your pocketbook versus just cultural growing? Very long crop, just FYI.
Yeah, you started growing a long time ago.
Yeah, 6 months. It's a 6-month crop. Granted, we're growing some of these big guys that are like 3 feet tall. So, okay, 3 feet might be an exaggeration, but it feels like 3 feet.
Well, cool. There's poinsettias. If anyone wants to start growing poinsettias, now you have the full guide and resource to do so.
Rock on, Babylon.
All right. Thank you so much, Brad.
You bet, Blaine. Thank you.
All right. Well, there we go. That was episode 95, Growing Poinsettias. I want to thank Brad for helping me do this podcast. I want to thank you, the podlings out there, wherever you are. Thank you very much. We love you. Come find us on YouTube. We have a channel. It's called The Horticult, a horticulture podcast. We also have an Instagram. It's called The Horticult. And then we also have a Facebook. So come check that out. Come find us if you're into the social medias. So thank you very much. And plant on, Babylon.